Hi, and welcome to Power Up, a business growth series. My name is Malia Powers with Power Up Marketing, and today we have with us John Foster, founder and managing member of a Tampa-based company that is called PathFinder Group. We welcome John to the show. John, what exactly is exit planning?
Great question, Malia. PathFinder Group, we tend to use transition and exit planning interchangeably. Each denotes a change in ownership that can be either internal to the next generation or to a set of employees through an ESOP, or to current management who might want to buy out the current owner. Or the transfer could be an external option where you're selling to a strategic buyer. And in each case, it's a pretty complex process. It's not like just listing your business for sale with a broker like you might do for your home. Although, unfortunately, many people think it's that simple and do just that, which accounts for why 86% of those folks that list their business for sale with a broker fail to sell the business. Or conversely, they sell it for a remarkably discounted price. And there are lots of reasons for that, and we can go into that.
Let's talk about approaching that process to our viewers.
Our approach is unique, but it didn't originate with us, and it's quickly becoming the gold standard. When planning, we're considering a number of issues, not just the business. We want to understand the owner's personal goals, their financial goals, and the goals for the business. And unless you understand these three elements of the owner's life, it's hard to get alignment with all three. And it's critical that you do have alignment with all three, because at the end of the day, there's 7 different ways you can exit your business. And each one has incredible implications, not only from a tax perspective, but from the perspective of actually meeting the goals of the employer.
John, why exit planning?
So given the description that I just gave you about what exit planning is and the implied complexity of it, why wouldn't you plan? I mean, right now, I'm having my house painted. And I'm having my house painted by a firm that we've used for years. And it's always been wonderful. But in the intervening period, the owner sold it to somebody else. And they have no clue about a process. And it's clear that they haven't done any planning. And so the chaos and miscommunication that's ensuing is creating not only stress, but an awful lot of effort on my part to supervise what I really shouldn't and didn't expect to be supervising. So planning is absolutely critical. And I'd argue it's no less important in exit planning. You need a process. The process usually includes a team. Team could be your accountant, will certainly have something to say about the financial side of your house, and you may have a personal financial planner. That person would have a seat at your table. Depending on the exit that makes most sense for you, we may bring in somebody that expertise is in the area of M&A. And so it goes. It could be a trust attorney, or it could be somebody who's going to help you with the implications of your taxes. It is a complex issue, and so each choice that you make has different implications. And so we believe that a process, one that integrates your personal, your financial, and your business plans, is critical to the success of that exit or transition.
Let's talk about those 3 goals and what that might look like. Can you give us an example of 3 goals?
Think about the personal side of the equation for a moment. You just worked 35, 40 years building a business, and you're getting ready to exit that business. You've made plenty of sacrifices along the way, imagining your version of the American dream. So now it's time for you to realize that dream. Maybe it's travel, which is a common next step. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's being a philanthropist or giving more of your time in volunteerism. Those would be some considerations for the personal side of what it is you're trying to accomplish. From the business side, it can be just as varied from owner to owner. Let's say that you've built a brand that's well known in the community. It's important to you. It's important to your legacy. It's important to your family, and you want to maintain the values that built that company. Or you might want to make sure that the families who rely on that business and the success of that business for their livelihoods are treated in the same way that you've treated them as they helped you build the business. Those factors all enter into the conversation that leads towards the choices that are more aligned with you being able to accomplish those goals than if you didn't consider them in the first place. And at the end of the day, all of your goals are dependent on your financial condition. And in most cases, not all, but in most cases, people are looking to the business to fund that. And so if you don't have your business house in order, or it's not in as good order as you think it is, there's some work to do.
So we've talked about exit planning. Now let's switch to growth planning. How does growth planning relate to exit planning?
I love this question because exit planning and transition planning are terms that are in the normal vernacular of business. A lot of people understand them, though there's still some confusion around them. But growth planning is not as commonly understood. And so when you start thinking about what I said earlier, that is, people's goals after their ownership are so linked to the company's ability to fund those goals, and the degree to which their American dream is going to become a reality is linked to the business. And when owners discover that they're either mentally not ready to leave the business, or that the business is not financially as sound as they thought it was, then they have to start taking a hard look at those goals and objectives they had. And maybe adjustments have to be made in terms of a timeline or modifying those goals and aspirations. And what we find is in that 83% of businesses are neither mentally ready or business owners are neither ready to leave or financially ready to leave. That means they got to grow. And how are they going to grow? Well, I think it was Einstein that said you can't use the same kind of thinking to solve problems that got you in that predicament in the first place. And so we take an approach, which I'll talk about, that's very unique, very effective, and addresses a lot of the uncertainties that so many business owners have about misapplication of their resources to the things that don't really drive growth. We'll talk a little more about that.
Okay, so we're going to talk more about that. What does that mean? We got to find out. What does that mean, John?
So let's start with, are you really ready to exit? And many people come to us long before they're ready to exit. We maintain that it's smart to run your business as though you were going to exit, even if you're not, or even if the exit is 10 years down the road. But if you are thinking about an exit, we take you through what's called a business exit readiness index. And we want to understand whether or not you're financially ready, whether the business is financially ready, whether you're mentally ready. And so we have 4 categories that ascertain where we plot you in terms of where you currently are as to readiness to leave the business. And that's when I was referring to 83% of folks fall into that quadrant, that they're not really mentally ready to leave the business or financially ready to leave the business. So when they fully understand that the after-tax implications of a sale of their business right now is not going to be enough, when they understand that they're not going to have enough money left over to fund those 3 goals, then they start taking a hard look at how they can grow the business and how they could grow the business doing things that perhaps they weren't doing before. And that's where we apply some technology that was developed at MIT. It leverages artificial intelligence. It measures 18 questions that we'll ask them, 9 of which are macroeconomic and 9 of which are operational. And it'll pit their answers against a database of 25,000 other operators. And we can ultimately help them understand empirically what's the value of their business today, what the value of their business could be if they were operating in the top quartile of their industry. What are the red flags in their business that are existential threats that if they don't address them now or in the near future could spell doom for their company? What are the 3 top impediments, and there are generally more than 3, but we share the top 3 with them right out of the gate. What are the top 3 impediments that are preventing you from operating in the top quartile? And then we give them an index. Think of it as a proxy score that a buyer might apply to their business that represents what's the probability of me, a buyer, buying your business, of duplicating your cash flows, your profitability, and the same results that you're generating. What we find out is that unless you're scoring at 80 or above, you've got work to do. And most are scoring in the 50 to 53 range or lower. And so the growth planning approach that we take is one where we're using empirical objective data to inform our decisions so that we can mitigate the risk of making poor decisions and improve the likelihood of accelerating the growth the owner really needs in order to accomplish those goals that he or she has shared with us early on in the process.
So you've shared with us a lot about the exit and growth planning. How are the owners reacting to this index?
I'm thinking of the 5 stages of grief, usually with denial. Most will challenge the results. And that's why having other parties at the table to help reinforce the accuracy of what we're doing is helpful. Also, the credibility of this tool is very well documented and easy to verify. And so once they come to grips with the reality of the current situation, it's really then more of a process, and we take them through that process. And that process is really framed by what we call 3 dimensions of growth. You know, you've got to walk before you run, and you got to run before you can fly. And so having a company that can predictably produce cash flow is critical. And when you can predictably generate cash flow, you get to predictably generate profits. And it's those profits, when predictable, that underwrite predictable growth. So if we want to position the company for growth in a way that's meaningful, in a way that's sustainable, we've got to get those first 2 components in place. Cash flow, predictable profits. Predictable profits underwrite growth. And if we can continue refining what the instrument that we use from MIT helps tell us, we can move that growth in the direction of greater value for the business owner and for the business owner's family to ensure their version of the American dream, whatever that is.
Well, John Foster, thank you for being on the show today. We appreciate all of your insights that you've provided with your management and consulting firm, talking about exit and growth planning. We appreciate your time. And for more information on PathFinder Group, the contact information is listed below. Thank you for tuning in our Power Up episode, and have a great day.